just a moment, our host, Joseph Baker, will be joining us, along with a very special guest. Before we get started, I would like to introduce you to Joseph. He's a podcaster, event producer, writer, speaker, and audience builder. His passion is to help authors, speakers, and entrepreneurs build their audiences to monetize their leadership. Won't you please welcome our host, Joseph Baker.
Well, thank you, Ron, so much for that intro. And we would like to welcome all of our listeners and viewers today to the Compendium Podcast hosted by Leadership Books. And today we have a very special guest. We have Jeanie Cisco-Meth. Jeanie is the author of Bully Proofing You. She's an author, she's a speaker, she's a coach, and probably many other things. We're going to find all about her today. And Jeanie, welcome to the Compendium Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. And, you know, on this podcast, we are able to interview many people just like you who are authors, speakers, coaches, people making a difference in the world, taking your message, impacting a lot of people. And also it's inspirational for us because you're able to turn that into hopefully a larger business model, a way to help people, a way to generate income, and everything in between. So we're going to talk about a lot of that today. And mainly we want to hear about how you are helping people and how you're impacting the world. And so let's just jump in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what are you up to these days?
Okay. Well, in elementary school, they told me that I was too stupid, that I would never make it through school. And so when I sat down to write my first book, I kept hearing those voices. You know, you're too stupid. You'll never make it. You can't do that. And I remember telling myself, if I can help just one person, if I can make a difference in one person's life, save one life or whatever, then it's absolutely worth it. Because up until I wrote the book, I had been teaching it as a high school teacher. And I decided to become a high school teacher because I struggled so hard in school. I had so many learning disabilities. So when they said that in elementary school, they were right. I was stupid, or you could say I learned different than most people. And so I had a lot of labels. I got bullied. I got teased. You know, I had a lot of other issues as well. And I remember thinking, man, if I can help someone like my basketball coach, I'm 6 foot tall. And so my basketball coach that helped me, and, you know, the other teachers that did make a difference in my life. And so that's how I became a teacher. And I taught at an alternative high. And so I saw, you know, that's with gangs and all kinds of issues. And I thought, wow, these kids need more than just the health body systems and all of that. They need much more of the mental health kind of things. And so that's where Bully Proofing You came from. It was a program that I started teaching to my students to help them with goal setting and dreaming. And because at that time I'm talking to my students, and one of them, he was 17 years old and he had 7 kids. And I'm like, what? I couldn't fathom that. And I'm like, how many mamas, you know, how many all this? And are you paying child support? Are you doing? And so I started thinking, okay, wait, we've got to back this truck up way far back and let's start talking about things. And so I started having some conversations with my students, because at that time you were with your students all day. You didn't get a break. And we even ate lunch with them and everything. And so lunchtime became a time to get to know my students. And I realized so many of them, they thought their dream or their idea of the future was a family reunion at the state penitentiary. And I'm like, no, no, there's other things out there. And so Bully Proofing You came from that grassroots of helping my students change. And I loved teaching. I still love teaching. And one of our students committed suicide, and one of the teachers turned to me and said, when are you going to write your book? Because that student wasn't in my classroom. And she said, you're helping people in your classroom, but what about the people outside of your classroom? What about the moms? What about the dads? What about people who are our age that still have that bully in their head? And so that's what prompted me to sit down and overcome my bullies to write that first book.
Wow. Very, very powerful. So much that we could unpack out of there. I'm just curious for people that read your book, What is the type of feedback that you get? Okay, so you started out by this experience in a school system, you're influencing, you're changing lives, but now you've put it in book form. And so
Yeah.
now anybody has access to this information and inspiration. What's been the feedback and how is it impacting people?
Oh my gosh. I've received so many letters, emails, phone calls, all kinds of stuff from people all over the world. My book has gone places that I have never gone, but hope to go someday. But I think the most touching was a letter from a mother in Japan. And the bottom line was, thank you for giving me my daughter back, because her daughter had been suicidal for a long time. And she heard about the book. I don't remember. I think she heard about it from, I don't remember where she heard about it, but I've had other people's, I'll be in a store or whatever, and people come up and say, oh my gosh, I heard about your store from the nurse at Children's Primary Hospital or whatever. And she wrote me this letter that was just, thank you. And I hear that constantly. Thank you for giving me my child back, or thank you for helping me become the mom I wanted to become, or the employee I wanted to become. I love my job, but I'm afraid to do things because of that bully between my ears. So it really is a message that transcends all areas of life and all ages as well.
Wow. Wow. It's very powerful. What was an aha moment that you had when you were writing this book? Something that might have even surprised you. Tell us about that.
The aha was when I got the first edit back. So at the school that I was teaching at, one of the other teachers, he was our English teacher, he decided to write a book. And I was like, wow, I could never do that. I was just because I'm still going back to those stories right in my head. And he wrote this book, and he, it was a good journey for him. But when he got his edited version back, he said, I just put it on the shelf. I couldn't handle it because it was bleeding red. My aha moment was when I got my edit back, and I'm like, this is a good book. I'm reading through the edits, and she took my ideas and just made them even better, and I would forget sometimes that I had written it. And I'm like, that is so good. And then I'm like, wait a minute, Jeanie, you wrote this book.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I wrote this book. And I still pinch myself. I'm like, I took thoughts from my head that I had been teaching for years, and I put them down on paper, and I sent them off to an editor, and she sent them back to me, and she had corrected all my spelling and my grammar, because I have speech impediment that I've worked years and years on. There were words I couldn't say when I was younger. Spelling was a nightmare for me, and so all of those learning disabilities in elementary school and high school and college, I still have. I've just had to learn how to deal with them. And so when I wrote this book, and it was all of these things that I use to help me, and I'm reading it and I'm going, this is a good book. That was just, it was amazing. It was so amazing. And I don't want to brag. I don't want to sound egotistical. That's not it. It's just, I have a lifetime of experiences, and I'm so blessed to be able to have put them in word form, to help people all over the world, that it's absolutely from God. It's a God-given gift that came through me to other people. And I just feel so blessed. So blessed.
Wow. That's very powerful. What's an example of something that maybe didn't make it into the book that you would still love to communicate and share? Like maybe a story or an idea, something that didn't quite make it in, but that you think about.
So I've now written my third book, and that has a lot of the things that it hasn't been published yet. We're still editing. This book has taken much longer to write than the first book, but the first book I taught for so long, And I think one thing, if I were to go back to this book, I think one of the things I would talk a lot more about God and his power and his message for me. I mention him and I talk about him, but it's just a way that I live now. Whereas back then it was something that I was learning and moving into. I was raised Christian. I had falling out with the church. And so at that point, I was just kind of getting back into it. And, I remember praying a lot when I would sit down to type, and I'm like, Lord, just use me. Even before our interview today, I say that prayer, Lord, use me today, use my words. Let people who need to hear it. So they can hear you, not me, you. And so I think I would do a much stronger call to action, to get into your Bible, to talk to God, your higher power. I know he's in many forms. He's known by many names, but to me, it's God. And he's there always. And he loves us always. And so many people that I talk to, they feel alone. They feel disconnected. They feel, like they're on the outskirts. And oh my gosh, if I could just remind everybody that you're not. You are loved. No matter what you do, you are loved. I would really, and I know the first chapter in the book is, getting the first part, it's into 3 different sections. And the first section is 3 or 4 chapters, and it's about learning to like yourself, personal value. And then it goes into perspective, and then it goes into planned responses. And that first part, that personal value, it's not about ego. It's about knowing that I am loved, that I am valuable, that I matter. So many, and I'm talking about my daughter right now. My daughter has not had the best of relationships, and it's because she puts their needs, their wants, their dreams ahead of her. And sometimes people say, well, that's good. Well, to a degree, you need to remember that your dreams, your wants, your wishes, your needs are just as important as the other person. They're not more important, but they're just as important.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I would say.
Wow. That's great. Very deep, very deep. So fast forward to today. Tell us a little bit about how you've taken the message behind your book. And in addition to, I love how you said, by the way, that the book has gone places that you haven't even, you haven't even been physically, right? And some of those places you hope to go. But beyond the book, how else do you help people? And what other ways do you help people these days?
So specifically with the book, we have a workbook that goes along with it. We also have videos for each chapter that take a little bit deeper dive into it. So it's a whole home study course that people can use. They purchase and they do it at their own pace, with their kid, without their kid, as a family, whatever. That's one thing that we've added. Another thing is I love to teach and I love traveling. I had an engagement in Ireland in 2020. By the grace of God, I didn't get stuck there, right? I didn't go there and then get stuck and not be able to come home, but it was canceled. We've done radio interviews, TV, all over the world. And we've also gone into different school districts and done the entire school district. So we've also gone into different businesses and helped them as well. A person can be much more productive when they believe that they can be more productive. Sometimes people in the trenches, so to speak, get caught up in them versus us. There's the leadership or the the management part, and then there's all of the workers and that bringing it together and helping them tame that bully so that they can speak up, so that they can, if they do have an idea that may make it better, that they can bring that. Or the management saying, hey, this is why we do things this way. And it's in a professional manner, and it's not in an attacking manner, but it's in a way that lets people know that, hey, we care. And we really do, like our business. No management wants their business to go under. They want people that enjoy working there. They want customers that enjoy coming there. And so I've absolutely loved doing those. I love live events. They're my favorite. Virtual, since we went virtual in 2020, I have been to Ireland, just not in person.
Nice.
We've also been to a lot of places in the UK, and here. Before the pandemic, we went to North Dakota and did Oak's entire school district, which was just incredible. So we have the privilege of being able to travel and share it in person or virtually, or by video, digitally delivered to you right in your home.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. And do you, in addition to the events, do you work with anyone one-on-one or in group
Yes.
settings? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I was a basketball coach for just over 25 years. I was the first female that Rick Majerus ever hired. And I know that he has passed. I know that may be dating me, but he was an incredible coach and he didn't really like women. And when I applied with him, he was like, he sat down, and a few months after I'd been working with him, he came and sat by me. And prior military, it's like the general sitting down next to you and kind of like, oh my gosh, I was kind of freaking out. And he's like, I hired you because I had to. You're the only woman with balls big enough. And he says, but you've come in here and you've done an amazing job. And because of you, I'll hire more women in the future. Wow. And I was like, wow, that was huge. And so I had been a basketball coach for a long time. And I started teaching, and about 5 or 6 years into my speaking career, somebody asked me, do you coach? And I'm like, yeah, basketball. And they're like,
yeah, what?
No, do you take this concept and coach me on it? And I'm like, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
And so that first client opened the door for hundreds of people after. And I love that one-on-one people who come to me and say, hey, Jeanie, whether it's coaching them how to work with their teams, or coaching them how to work with their boss, or coaching them how to work with their spouse, being able to remove those stories that are stopping us and limiting us, and open up the field to a whole new vision of what they want. One of the beautiful gifts that my husband gave me was the ability to dream again. I'd been a single parent, just slogging through, so to speak. And we've now been very happily married for over 20 years. And when I met him, I had forgotten how to dream. I was so worried about just where's our next meal coming from? Where's our next this coming from? That I'd forgotten to sit back and be grateful, because gratitude has to come first. And then the dream comes second. And so being able to take a person from the dream state, right? The I want state to the I have state is absolutely phenomenal. And I love that. I love that.
That's really good. So the topic of bullying has become a little bit more spoken about, a little bit more prevalent in recent years. And in a positive way, people are really looking at this issue, especially seemingly in schools. I hear it a lot, spoken about in schools. For that person that feels helpless, for that person that feels like they've been possibly even abused in this way, if you want to use that word, if you had a minute to just speak to that person, to speak into their life, what would you say to them?
So the second part of my book has everything to do with perspective and the way we see things. And if I'm being bullied, I need to remember that hurt people hurt people. And it's not about me and what they're saying. I got called Four Eyes. I got called Lurch. I'm 6 foot tall. I was by the 8th grade. I got called stupid. I got called so many names. And if I would have had that tool when I was younger, I could have reached out to more people. We have social media platforms all over, as everybody does. And there are trolls on social media. And I always remember that hurt people hurt people. So when they say something to me, I always reach out to them and I say, hey, I know hurt people hurt people. How can I help? How can I be of service? And if we can remember that in that moment when, the problem is when emotion is high, intelligence is low. And that's the third part of the book, the planned responses, that somebody says something, it's a zinger or a thorn or a prickly, whatever you want to call it, it hurts. And our reaction is to become defensive and angry and slash back. But if we can remember that hurt people, and when emotion is high, intelligence is low, and I can have a few planned responses, then I can say, hey, thank you for sharing. Now, I'm not thanking them for hurting me. I don't care what their opinion of me is. Eleanor Roosevelt said that what other people think about me is none of my business, or close to that. And that's true. So if somebody's saying something to me, it has nothing to do with me and everything to do with them.
Mm.
So if you're in the middle of abuse or bullying, now there's a difference between bullying and abuse, and there's a difference between someone saying something to you and bullying you. So let's kind of define those, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
So somebody who just a one-off, you don't really know them, gets angry at you and in your face. That's not a bullying situation. That's just a rude, I call them terrorist attacks. That's just somebody who was just filled up, and the last little drop they splashed over, and you happened to be there and they splashed on you. That, just let that go. You don't need to spend any time on that.
Mm-hmm.
Bullying is when somebody continually puts you down or tries to hold you down to make themselves feel better, or to kind of, they've kind of picked you as a target and it's repeated. That's
Mm-hmm.
bullying. Abuse is when they put their hands on you, or they, they smack you around, or they push you, or they shove you, or they hit you. That's abuse. That's not bullying. And so being very clear on those different instances lets us know that if your child or you is being abused, you need to go to the police.
Sure.
You need to get that taken care of. That's physical, should not be happening. That's not bullying. Now, if you're in the stage of where somebody is, like I said, you're in the store and somebody yelled at you and you're like, they're having a rough day, been there myself, you're forgiven, go on. But if it's at work, or if it's at school, or in your home, somebody's continually holding you down, then that needs to be addressed. And I highly, highly recommend the Bullyproofing You system, because it will walk you through step by step how to build your personal value, how to start looking at other people as victims as well. So many bullies are victims themselves of bullying at home, or abuse at home. And so being able to remember that hurt people. And I need to learn how to think through my emotion is very, very important in any situation. Absolutely.
Wow. Very powerful. For people who are watching and listening to this, and they would like to reach out to you and really find out more about what you offer, your resources, possibly even your coaching, or just to connect with you, maybe they have a question, where would they go to find that?
So the best thing to be, I do have a website, JeanieCisco-Meth.com. There's no hyphen in the website, but the best thing would be just send me an email, Jeanie@JeanieCisco-Meth.com. And if you let me know that you were listening to this Leadership Books, the Compendium Podcast, I'll absolutely give you a free 30-minute session with me where we can just sit down and you can ask any question, and we'll go as deep as we can in that 30 minutes and make sure that you have some help. So that's what I would recommend. Send me an email to Jeanie@JeanieCisco-Meth.com, no hyphen. Thank
you very much for that. Very generous of you. And I hope that those of you who are watching and listening will take her up on that. Again, just send her an email, Jeanie@JeanieCisco-Meth.com. Also, be sure to grab the book, Bullyproofing You, at leadershipbooks.com, and also on her website. Be sure to do that as well. Jeanie, thank you so much for joining us today. I feel like you've added a ton of value, and part of me wants to keep going with this interview, for another hour, but at the same time, I feel like it's also meant to be a little bit of a preview, right? Really, the goal is we want people to get your book. We really do. And then after they get your book, we want them to reach out to you to see what's next. You know what I mean? Yeah. So today's a preview. It's a teaser of what you're offering. And I think that we've done a great job of drawing that out of you. I think you've done a really good job of communicating that. So thank you. I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for the impact that you're making in the world. Not everyone gets to have such a great mission, honestly. You know what I mean? So you really are on mission. You're on target. You're addressing a real need or helping a lot of people. So thank you for that. And thank you for being a guest today on the Compendium Podcast. And thank you for all of our viewers and listeners today. Please check out leadershipbooks.com as well as Jeanie's website, and we will catch you all in the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you. And if I may, if they let me know, if they'll send me an email, let me know that they bought the book from you guys, I will send them a digital copy of the workbook absolutely free. Just as my gift to them and saying thank you for supporting the book through you guys. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for today's broadcast. I do hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And be sure to visit us online at leadershipbooks.store. There you'll find the works of some of the finest thought leaders today. And be sure to tune in here each week to gain even deeper insights from one of those leaders on the Compendium Podcast.